All right, all right. Welcome to the podcast. We're going to cover some great topics today. Got a real special guest today, Mr. Cole Wilkes, aka Flatlander, fellow Texas backcountry hunter extraordinaire. Welcome, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Emilio. I don't know about that, but
Dude,
I'll
it's
take
always good to
whatever
talk to
introduction.
a fellow Texan who knows the backcountry. And
Yes,
uh,
sir.
funny thing, how I met Cole. I actually was met Cole up on the mountain in Colorado. It was day one for me and my cousins. Were coming around the mountain, and here comes Cole with Kyle, his buddy, hunting buddy, packing out his last. I think it was your last haul of meat, no? And
No, I actually just dropped a quarter off in my head because I was tired of carrying the whole bull.
yeah,
But yeah, we just dropped a little bit of meat and was headed back to the truck.
yes, it's pretty ironic because I was like, hey man, it's always good to meet guys out in the mountain, and I was like, well, I got a podcast. I always tell people, if I meet out in the field, and he's like, well, I got a YouTube channel, Flatlander. I was like, oh, wow, okay, cool. I'll check it out. And I think one of my cousins, he like immediately subscribed there on the mountain.
Yeah, I think he did it. I think it was right there on the trail. He pulled his phone out.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, I found it."
Yeah. So super
That's
cool,
cool.
man. Pretty ironic that you meet up there. And ever since, I've been a big fan of the channel. And, been wanting to
Well,
invite you out for a while, but I know you were hunting, I was hunting, so
yeah,
I think the timing worked out good. So I really appreciate you coming on.
you
Um,
bet.
we're going to drop some knowledge. Cole's a big promoter of sharing his knowledge out there on his YouTube channel and Flatlander. So we're going to, expand a lot of the stuff he's already got out there, some general tips and strategies for new hunters, maybe some tips on avoiding pressure, some ground hunting tactics, that kind of stuff. Um, but before we get started, give us a little background about yourself, how you got into the outdoors, and how you got into this.
Well, again, my name is Cole Wilkes. I live just north of Austin, Texas. I'm a small business owner. Uh, I actually grew up hunting and fishing on the Colorado River, just east of Austin, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth with hunting. We pretty much ate wild game and fish growing up the whole time. We were pretty low income family, so we thrived off of stuff that we could get for free right there off of the river. And that just, as I got older, it just really pushed me to I always wanted to hunt. I've always loved hunting. And you know, so it's just been part of my life since I was born. So that's really all I've ever known.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I was basically born into it as well. So and we'll get into it here. It's, I think sometimes I don't realize this. I don't know if it's the same for you, how much we just know because we've done it so long,
Yeah.
and that's kind of why I like, you got this, you're really big into educating, the folks out there. And I am too. I try to come at it from if I'm a new hunter who didn't grow up in a hunting family, you know, how does one even start? So I'm always trying
Oh,
to,
yeah, man.
share that kind of knowledge.
It really is difficult, because look at Texas, for one,
Mhm.
if you are somebody that's not wealthy and doesn't really have a lot of means to go get a lease or anything, they probably don't even know about hunting,
Right,
right?
right.
And the out of all 50 states, Texas has less than 1% of public land.
Yep.
So that's a difficult thing for some people to break into, and that could be nationwide. People are beginning to learn how clean and good wild meat is. So a lot of people are starting to turn to hunting. And you're right, we don't realize, I don't, especially, you know whenever I go into the woods, there are things that I do that I don't even think
Right, right.
about.
Yep. No, for sure. And I think it's important that, that we share our knowledge, because if we want this tradition to go on, like we need to bring new people into hunting, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah,
You know, for sure. I mean, that just to maintain the interest and especially when it comes to public land.
for sure. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. So, what got you into wanting to create the channel, being content creator? What got you into that, and how long you been doing it?
Okay, so the channel started. So this is a crazy thing. Okay, I had been applying for a TV show on the History Channel alone
Oh, okay.
for about 4 years.
My dad's a big fan of that.
Okay, well, so I applied, and finally, they always would respond back. Um, we've got your information. In the meantime, practice on self filming and getting footage of yourself doing these survival things or hunting, whatever it is, just practice on self filming. So after 3 years of doing that, I was like, you know what? I started a YouTube channel in like it was November. Man, it's been probably I'm going on 3 years. I think I'm going on 3 years. Anyways, I was like, at the same time, a couple of months later, I was like, okay, I've been working on my self filming and it's been going great. I think I'm doing pretty good. So I emailed them back in like February, uh, 2 years ago. And I was like, I sent them 3 emails back to back to back,
Oh,
right? Well, they ended up getting a hold of me. Long story short, out of like thousands and thousands of people, I made it to the top 22 of the History Channels alone. And they flew me up to New York, and I basically, they were gathering 10 people to go on the show. And out of that, man, I met so many cool people up there, and I'm so good friends with like Joel that I pig hunted with,
right.
and Keith. They all went to Alone, and they're all great friends of mine now. After that, so after that happened, everybody there like was shocked that I didn't get picked.
Wow.
And I'm not just trying to toot my horn or anything. Like I'm great friends with all of them. Sean, Callie. I mean, the list goes on. All 10 of them, except for the winner, Roland. I haven't been in contact with him at all. But anyways, That's why I started the YouTube channel, was just to start self filming.
Hmm.
Um, and then I was like, well, you know what, man, I've always wanted to have my own outdoor channel, and here's my opportunity. So why not showcase the one thing I think I'm really good at, which is bow hunting.
Right.
So that's kind of how it all spurred, and kind of came together, and uh, here we are with Flatlander.
Wow. Dude, that's an amazing story, dude. Like, who gets to audition for Alone, man? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
too bad
and
you
I'm
weren't
I'm
picked.
actually. Yeah, and I've been with Joel a couple different times. Once in Florida, and then
Uh-huh.
I went up to Oregon with him and tried to help him learn how to elk hunt.
Mm, okay.
We did that before Kyle and I went to Colorado. We
Right.
spent a week and a half in Oregon with Joel. But yeah, it's been awesome.
Awesome. Well, it's like I said, I've been a big fan. You're really doing some good stuff out there. Kudos for doing the self filming thing. Like, dude, that's tough. I toyed around with it this season, just filming, bucks and stuff. Not really self filming, dude. It's I don't know, man.
Yeah,
And that was
it's
just with
it's
my phone. I mean, I got some cool
yeah, man.
footage.
It's a whole different animal.
Right. Yeah. And I
Especially
can go ahead.
when you're trying to build a story.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about getting footage, but then at the same time, I've got to equal that out with figuring out the hunt as well. So I'm adding way more pressure on the whole situation than
Yeah.
what's needed really. But I want to share it, and I want to prove that that I'm worthy to be up there with the big dogs like the hunting public and
The
born and
bro.
raised
Yeah.
outdoors and Corey Jacobson better look out, because as
Oh
soon
yeah.
as they open up the next world calling
There
elk
you
calling
go, man.
championship, I'm gonna go try out.
Oh,
You
good for
know.
you, man. Good for you. I mean, I consider myself pretty good, but I ain't no Corey Jacobson, that's for sure. But that's awesome, dude. That's
Yeah,
yeah, like I say, you're doing some great stuff, and it's good. I'm glad because well, you know, aside from those big guys, right, Hush and on Bro Crew and all
yeah,
those guys, I mean, I think your channel definitely has the potential to get there for sure. You know, and again, I like that you promote the public land hunting. That's something I got into years ago after losing my deer lease. Um, have you always hunted public land, or is that something fairly new for you?
no, man. So with growing up in Texas, all I ever knew was private property
Mm-hmm.
and getting like permission, because I mean, I grew up on the east side of Austin, man. We weren't necessarily just rolling in
Right.
the dough. So I didn't even know what public land was, to be honest with you, until I was like in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And then a friend of mine was like, "Hey, do you want to go elk hunting in Colorado on public land?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I didn't really. Uh oh.
No, it's all right.
I didn't. It's all right. I didn't really understand the amount of public land that was out there because of being in Texas. And Amelia, um, after that very first trip to Colorado, it blew my mind the amount of land that was out there for you and me to go be on and harvest animals. And from that point on, I was like, I don't really care anything about private property ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I've been withheld this information my whole life.
Yep.
So I got into it in my 20s, and after that, it's just been a snowball. You know.
Awesome. Yeah, man, it's amazing how our stories are very similar. Same thing. A buddy took me. Never thought about it. Grew up deer lease hunting. Never thought about it. I was probably in my upper 20s. First time got invited to Colorado. It was for
Yeah.
mule deer hunt, and I was like, sure, why not? Check it out. And dude, I was just blown away. I mean, it was just like, wow, dude. And same thing. I didn't, I could, I couldn't afford to go every single year at that time.
Yeah.
I've been blessed that the last 3 years I went in a row, but it was always, maybe spaced out anywhere 3 to 5 years of trips going up there. But yeah, it
Yeah.
opened my eyes, and I never looked into Texas public land, like I said, until I actually lost my deer lease, and
Yeah.
and again, it's a rich man's game, in
Yeah,
Texas.
man.
It's not cheap,
Sure.
for sure. Yeah, you can find some mom and pop leases, but you really don't have a whole lot of, they don't really produce.
No.
If it's cheap, it's usually not a very good place. But anyway, and that's when I started digging into and finding some of the same places you hunted, and when I moved down here to the Rio Grande Valley, there's some places down here too that
Yeah.
you can hunt. So yeah,
Yeah, there are
cool.
opportunities there, but they're few and far between.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason they're so pressured, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's because
Yeah.
there's so little public land in
Well,
Texas.
now people think they're pressured.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. There's some places that aren't, and we'll get to that strategy here in a bit.
Yeah.
Um, but before we move on, dude, again, you crushed it in 2020, man. You did 5 states or so, and
Yeah. 5 states.
yeah, I think you were successful in all of them. We had the two bulls, both of y'all tagged out in Colorado, which is, dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Um, you got Kentucky. You shot a doe and a buck there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Shot a
Yeah.
doe and a buck in Kentucky.
And you got that nice 10-point Oklahoma.
Yeah. If you count the drop time, he's an 11.
Oh, okay. Hey, if I don't recall it, but if it's an inch, man, it counts. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like an inch and a half.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
And that one, dude, is that the one you
Uh,
shot bedded down? He was bedded.
he was bedded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure
You
was.
did a good shot on that one. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
On that
I
for sure.
contemplated that shot for a minute
Yeah.
before I finally decided I was going to do that. Yeah.
And then also self film, dude. freaking awesome.
Yeah.
uh, and of course, you got that buck in Texas. It was like a little scrub buck or something like that. No, uh,
Man, I'm going to be honest with you there. I think those deer down there where we're hunting is,
hmm
I really believe that those are Coues deer. I think there's a mix
there could be
of like,
because just because
of,
it's kind of yeah.
it's right on the border.
hmm
And whenever I had him aged by because we have to test for CWD down there
Oh, I didn't know that.
now. Yeah, it just happened this past year. They found three cases. I think it's up to six or seven right now.
Oh, wow,
Anyways, so the biologist had to age that deer, and he was 4.5 years old.
wow.
That buck was 4.5 years old,
So
and
he's
it
on.
was the most mature, biggest deer that I saw in 4 days.
Wow.
So I
Huh.
really believe that there are some Coues deer down there in South Texas because it has all the same stuff as Arizona and New Mexico, the
Yep.
ocotillo cactus, the
Right.
desert land. It's the same. So that's a South Texas Coues buck if anybody asks.
Yeah. Hey, I'm willing to say yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I hunted that when I was in San Antonio. I hunted that area a lot,
Yeah,
and yeah. And speaking of coups, man, you killed it in Arizona. Like
yeah.
that's something I want to do. But
You got to go do it. That's
dude,
at a. I will. I'm planning to hunt all 50 states, but I
that's awesome.
will. I'll almost guarantee you that I'll try to hunt Arizona and Oklahoma every single year.
Yeah, very cool. No, that's. I mean, because I mean, I haven't personally done it, but from I mean, listening to the rock stars of hunting, as I like to call them, Ryan Lampers and Gritty and
Yeah,
all those guys. They talk about, and even Brunella. They all, I mean, the gray ghosts, man. They're just they disappear on you. And for you and Kyle to both like spot and stalk on a Coues, like dude, like
I shot.
that's
I
next
made,
level, dude. Like,
dude. Thank you so much, man.
I mean, I would love to do that whole spot and stock thing, and I'm going to do it one of these days. But
Yeah.
dude, I hear it's tough.
So I shot that buck on my very first stalk in Arizona. That was my first deer to stalk on, and ended up shooting him. And Kyle made two stalks and shot his buck. So it's hard for me to say how all these other guys seem to have such a hard time. I'll be honest with you, man. We were into deer every day, and we could have made stalks on multiple different Coues deer every day.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, I hear there's a lot of them there. They're just tough to
Yeah,
get in. Excuse me. They're just tough to get into range. Like you just
yeah,
they're and they'll just disappear on you because they're so small and
yeah.
and flighty. I hear they're extremely flighty. Like they'll jump.
Super. That's why I ended up making a bad shot is because that buck actually ended up he watched me draw, and then when he heard the bow go off, he spun and I ended up hitting him back. Um, unfortunately, that's bow hunting.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It
yeah,
is.
they're very very jumpy for sure.
But I mean, but kudos to sticking with it and finding him. I mean, that's kudos for sticking with him and finding it. I mean, that's the way you're supposed to do it. To
Yeah,
get
yeah, I agree.
at all costs try to find your harvest. So I mean, I mean that's pretty cool that you got this goal of hunting all 50 states. That's pretty awesome. I hope you definitely do that. Out of what you did this past year, was there any one hunt that stood out as your toughest, whether physically, mentally, whatever?
It definitely was the Coues deer, just because I when you're doing these out of state hunts, man, you want it so bad. Like
hmm
you know how it is.
Oh yeah.
Even with elk hunting, like you have so much invested in time, taking off and money driving there and planning and just everything, and then to have your opportunity. Because I think sometimes, most of the times, you might only get that one opportunity.
Yeah.
And I really felt like I screwed that opportunity up. And that was the hard part for me was wounding that buck and then not knowing, for so long. that's what was that's the hardest, you know, fortunately, I don't have anything physically, that back in the day for sure. But since I've been elk hunting for so long,
Right.
it you know it's put me into the shape. So the other hunts were, they all have their they all definitely
Yeah.
have their hard their hardships
Yep.
because you know, Kentucky, Oklahoma, I killed both those bucks on the last day.
Hmm.
South Texas, I killed him on the last day. I
Hmm.
stayed a little bit extra to try to get it done. Um, you know, elk
Yep.
hunting, you know how elk hunting is.
Oh yeah, I do
Whenever
now.
I shot the whenever I shot my bull there, I was like, you know what, man, I'm just done and I'm ready to put my tag on a bull. Like the first thing that steps in front of me, he's getting
Yep.
it.
Yep. I mean,
Because
go ahead.
at that point, I'd been hunting like 20 something days already
Oh
for
yeah.
elk, and I was over it.
I can imagine. I can imagine. We were only up there 8 or 9 days, and yeah, by the
Yeah,
end of it, we were done. Luckily, I shot mine on day three, and then
yeah.
the rest of it. It
Good job on that, man.
yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. My first one, finally got her done, but then the rest. I mean, you talk about mentally and physically. I mean, oh my God, after, I did
Yeah,
train for it, but in hindsight, I should have trained harder, like a lot
for sure.
harder.
Isn't that the truth? Like
Yeah,
that's a if that's a nugget right there, a
mm,
knowledge bomb to drop to everybody. If you think you're in good shape,
you're not.
you ain't. You ain't.
No,
You ain't. No
no,
matter what,
no.
you need to be better. No matter what.
Yeah,
Always. That's what I believe
yep,
for sure.
for sure. And so just like that's what got me in the shape. And I went in the last 3 years, and I've been in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was training with 65 pounds, thinking, okay, that's good. No, I should have trained with 85 pounds,
Yes, sir.
90,
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
guys don't, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but my cousin wanted to come out and hunt elk with me real bad
Mhm.
last year, and I stressed to him and his two buddies, you guys, you got to, and they just, they were in good shape, but they weren't in elk shape.
Yep.
They weren't in elk hunting shape.
Yep.
Uh, and I think they realized that real quick.
Yep.
It made for a bad trip, really.
Yeah, no, it can, that's why I've always, you got to pick your hunting partners carefully. Like you just,
Yeah,
for a hunt like that, like you
for
gotta,
sure.
I mean, especially, with us being Texas flatlanders, we don't have, we don't have the mountains, to
Yeah.
train. You got some hills and stuff there in the hill country. Down here, I'm at, negative,
Yeah.
zero sea level sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's just tough to even, but I mean, I held our own. We got it through. We did through it. Determination goes a long way. Like I'm a firm
For
believer in.
sure.
I'm a firm
Oh,
believer.
mentally.
Mental toughness will get you a
That's right.
long way, for
Yeah.
sure. Which is my cousins. I mean, I was on them. Hey, train. You got to train. Come on. And they did good. I mean, they probably not to the extent that I did, but we all were huffing and puffing. That's for sure.
Yeah. Man, any of us that doesn't live in that elevation or near it, it affects us. It really, nobody can breathe up there. It's just whether or not you're in shape enough to just keep pushing forward, or do you have to stop and catch your breath? Us flatlanders, boy, we got to stop and catch our breath.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I get.
Kyle, if I didn't say something to Kyle, he'd walk off and leave
Oh, because
me.
he's from up there, right?
He
Yeah.
lives at
the-
8,000 feet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, we each bonked at different moments, so we were able to kind of just kind of work off each other, so it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
yeah, that's definitely uh, something that I took away. Is like, man, I was still happy with how I trained, but I should have trained harder, at least with the weight on my
Yeah.
back. Um, I think being public land, hunting public land, whether it's here in Texas or anywhere, I think some of the biggest, one of the hardest things is dealing with the hunting pressure and finding deer. What are some of your strategies? Like, how do you go about scouting new ground? Your e-scout, boots on the ground, both. What's your go-to?
Well, man, of course, my spots that are here locally, I just know them, and I've learned that, for somebody that's hunting a local piece of property, you should be out there learning that property and how the animals move through it, really year round. Like you should be visiting that place often if you're going to hunt it. Is my theory. Um, I As far as out of state go, um, a lot of e-scouting. I mean, Onyx maps. I'm looking at Google Earth, of course, um, and really just to get away from that pressure. Um, I'm locating multiple areas, and it's not always on the same piece of property. I could be looking at 3 to 4 different properties in one state. Um, and I always have in my mind, if I'm not seeing either the deer sign or the deer themselves within, you know, 24 hours, then I'm picking up and moving to a new spot.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I'm doing it whenever I show up on, actually in the state. Um, you can only pick it apart so much online,
Yep.
and every time you get there, you're like, oh my gosh, this is nothing what I thought it was going to be at all.
Yep.
You know, you get there and you're like, these trees are 150-foot tall.
Yeah.
And I thought this was like scrub brush sitting on the side of a hill.
Yeah.
This is, I had no, like going to Kentucky, I had no idea, the trees were going to be, you know, 3 foot in diameter and 150 foot tall, and their leaves are as big around as my head,
Yeah.
a foot thick on the ground. Google Earth and Onyx Maps doesn't tell you that at all.
No, they don't. No, they don't. For sure. I mean, I use a lot of those same OnX and Google Earth for sure. But it's still until you get there, especially in mountain country. Until you get there, dude, it's you don't. It's different. Um,
Yeah.
so when you're east guy, are you looking for corridors? Like, I mean, that's kind of what I do. And are you typically looking for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, man. So I'm always looking at a bunch of different things really whenever I'm e-scouting. For one, I'm looking for overlooked areas. I know you probably hear guys talk about that. But what I like to do, let's say we've got like a 50,000 acre WMA or something, right? And I'm looking at hunting that. Well, a lot of these states will also have little chunks of land that are out by, their self, maybe a half a mile or so off of the main WMA. But when you start looking at it, you can find these little like 4 to 800 acre tracts that are all by themselves. Man, I feel like a lot of people miss out on
Hmm.
opportunities, on those little blocks of land like that because they think that it's immediately overpressured just because of how small it is, and I can tell you that that is not the case.
That's a huge knowledge bomb right there. I hadn't thought about that, but that's true. It is very true.
Yeah.
Cool. So, once you're in a place, never been there before, is there certain strategies? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you've got some waypoints dropped that you want to check out. Yeah.
So no matter what, I usually always pick, for like my first morning. No matter if I'm in real thick forest area or if I'm out in the deserts of West Texas. The first thing that I find e-scouting is my highest point. That's the first thing that I go to, regardless. Like, and I do that because immediately I know that's going to put me on deer sign or right by deer sign. Because even out here in the flatlands, you would be surprised how these deer will find just a 2 foot elevation, berm or terrace that they'll use, and they're going to leave that sign on that, on that feature, right? So even if it's heavy forest, a lot of these deer are bedding down up on the hills, or from what I can tell, is if the conditions are right and the cover is there, and I can go to that hill and find that cover, then I just start dissecting the property apart from there. I always start with the high point. for one, I can always glass from it, and it never fails that for whitetail especially, they're down lower feeding
Yep.
most of the time in the lower elevations at night.
Hmm.
So that first morning, I'm at the highest point, whether that's in the forest or in the swamps, whatever it might be, the river bottoms. I'm at the highest point that I can get to on that piece of public land, and I'm just waiting there until daylight.
Yep.
Really.
Yep. No, that's good information. It's just there's some areas that don't have a high point,
No,
and
yeah,
it's just kind of.
no
I
doubt.
think you just gotta walk those. I guess looking for bedding, looking for water, looking for your feed. The three needs basically.
Yeah,
Of any deer. But yeah, for sure. Um, and that series you're putting out right now, the ground hunting tactics series, that's pretty awesome, dude. I mean, you're really dropping some knowledge bombs on that. Um,
yeah. Thank you.
to dig in a little bit on what you put out there, at least so far. The getting away from pressure, the 1 mile rule. I mean, I think that's gold. I mean, I've heard that even for some from people who are out west. Obviously, that's a true thing, but it works here in Texas just as it probably does
Yeah,
anywhere, any other state. I mean, I go by that as well. Um,
yeah, man. I mean, most of the guys are, and I don't know where this came about, but everybody thinks they need to get up as high as they can or get up in a tree to be able to hunt deer, uh, regardless of where you're at.
mm,
If you look at private property leases, you look at public land. I mean, just go walk around out there, and you're going to see somebody set up anywhere from I've seen it anywhere from 4 foot off the ground all the way up to like 30 foot off the ground.
mm,
So I think that's I think people kind of get away from or they get too attached to that.
yeah, and I think just like in Colorado, people want to stay close to their vehicle, like they
Yeah,
just want they're thinking I'm gonna have to drag that animal a mile or
exactly.
half. They're not wanting to go that extra. I mean, I'm willing. I do it here in some of the parts here. Luckily, there's hardly any trees high enough to hang a tree
Yeah,
or straight enough down here to even hang
right.
a tree stand on. Uh,
But I
eh,
mean, would you agree that having to carry this stuff in kind of after so long, and especially in the dark, right?
mhm.
If you're carrying your stand in plus your day's snacks, if you're hunting all day,
Yeah,
most guys are hiking back to the truck, so they're thinking about that too. Like, I've got to be able to walk in and out of there 2 times today with all this stuff on my back. So that limits them to a very short distance, almost right off the bat.
yep,
People get lazy real quick,
yep,
and in the dark your distance seems to double. Like once the sun comes up, you're like, oh dang man, I
yeah,
can damn near see the truck from here.
yep,
You know,
yep,
um, so those couple of factors really limits. I think where it just kind of points arrows to me anyway
yep,
where the deer are staying.
yep. No, for sure. And the way you described it on your video, kind of drawing this, this barrier of a 1 mile radius, even on the access points or along the roads. I mean, I use that tactic even in Colorado, right? It
Yeah,
just works because people are not, even with or without a stand. There's just a lot of people who are just not going to go that far,
yeah,
for sure. I've made the mistake of setting up stands and carrying in hub style blinds, maybe even though they're ground, and setting up ahead of time. And I just once I get in there and start hunting, like, man, it seems better over here. Or it seems I
yeah,
just like to be mobile. I've learned the hard way is like, dude, I want to be mobile. So I'm 100%
yes,
now. It's rely on your camo and just be mobile.
yeah. Yeah, rely on your good camo, whatever brand it is. Who
Mhm.
cares, right?
Right.
Just have confidence in that, and that'll take you a long ways on the ground. And being I guess monitoring how much you're on your phone and actually pay attention to what's going on out there
Yeah.
around you. There's probably a lot of guys that are get bored, and next thing you know, they're scoping through Facebook or YouTube,
Yeah.
and big buck walks out, and next thing you know, they're like, "Oh, he was right there, but he spooked for some reason."
Yeah. You weren't ready. That's what
Yeah, that's
happened.
right.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. Man, you talked about practicing an animal's bubble. I think that's something I hadn't heard, and I think that's one of those things. When you just grow up hunting, you just kind of do it
Yeah,
innately. But the tip of practice on a bird in the backyard or what, I mean, that's golden to me. Like that makes a lot of sense, especially to a new hunter. Um,
yeah. Well, I mean, we all started off, those of us that hunted for most of our lives, we started off with a Red Ryder BB gun,
yep.
right? And you had to learn to get super close to be able to shoot anything with that damn thing.
Yeah.
And then we graduated up to like a pump pellet gun,
Yep.
right?
Yes,
And
sir.
and then all of a sudden you think you're a badass and you get a fiberglass recurve bow for your your 10th birthday,
Yeah.
and then you're having to start all over again and to try to get close, so it's you're learning that bubble, those animals bubble. A squirrel, there's only so close you can get to the squirrel before he's like, okay, I'm tired of it, I'm running, right?
Yep.
It's that same thing with everything. Just like a mature buck, their bubble is going to be pretty small,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
That doe, her bubble's not as small. She'll let you come in a little closer before she stands up and blows at you and then bounds off. So all of those things, being a ground hunter, you have to pay attention to every animal's bubble, because if you didn't pay attention to that bird, well, that bird just flew over and bumped a crow, and then that crow flew over and stood up these does, and next thing you know, you're 150 yards out and you're spotted.
Right. Yep. Yep. No, for sure. And that yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's good for stalking. That kind of hunt for sure. I think again, being in Texas, you're hunting out a deer stand and deer blind. Your typical, you just don't get that practice. So that's very good knowledge to pass on. Is to practice, like you said. I not even knowing and taking my.
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
Emilio, I would say, like, to your listeners and to my subscribers, I would encourage you. You've already got, let's say you have a tripod set up, because
Yep.
a lot of South Texas guys use tripods
Yep.
because we don't have trees to hang it on,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So you're limited there just on how far up you can get without it getting sketchy, right?
Right.
Well, most of the guys in Texas and a lot of places bait. So we've got a feeder there,
Yep.
and we know those does are going to come in.
Yep.
Try sitting below your tripod just for a couple of evenings to see how that feels,
Hmm.
being right there on that ground level. And just sit there. You're not planning on shooting a doe, or even if you are, then attempt it.
Right.
But get down there on the ground and you'll learn that, oh, it's a whole lot like being up in the tree. But I think it really opens up opportunity. So I encourage those guys that have those tree stands or those tripods, y'all just don't get up in it one day and see how that feels, even on that private property.
Yep. No, you're right. You're exactly right for sure. Because there's multiple times the wind may not be right for your tree stand, or I mean your tripod. So
Yeah,
set up. If you
on
don't
the
have
other,
more than one, set up on the downwind side of your feeder in the
absolutely,
brush. And I mean, I had I have an uncle recently passed who was an awesome hunter. He's the one that said the best camouflage in the world was to use your natural foliage, your natural
yeah,
surroundings. To just get in there and blend in, with at their level. But
yeah,
like so that's actually, and I think just becoming me, I converted to bow hunter, from being a rifle hunter most of my life, and then that I talk about this in a previous podcast. Like bow hunting is like next level, like it is. Like no offense to rifle hunters, but it's just you move slower. You have to like you get pinned and you got to freeze and you got to hold it until they dismiss you.
yeah,
It's that
right,
that kind of practice that helps you
yeah.
with that stalking. Um, I really like that. You talked about walking where it's noisy, or even if it's not noisy. And I agree with this 100%. Changing up your cadence, like
Yeah.
that's gold right there. Like we're just not designed to walk as stealthy as an animal. We're just
No.
not. We're not, and we're not going to. So, uh, yeah, like you said, change up your step cadence.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned that on really hunting pigs first. I learned that, I mean, you probably know what an armadillo sounds like when it's going through the woods, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-stop just,
Yeah.
it's like it's over there rustling around in the loudest leaves possible
Yeah.
for as long as it can possibly go without something spooking that armadillo,
Right.
right?
Right.
Well, instead of your pace being walking through the woods, I just started shuffling my feet like that, like a dang armadillo. And next thing you know, I'm 20 yards from pigs, and then I'm getting into 10 yards. And next thing you know, I'm shooting pigs at like 5 feet with my bow,
Mm-hmm.
just creeping in like that. And so then I started really thinking about it. And you know, if you listen to a doe come in with a lot of leaves around, she's not just at a certain rhythm. She'll take a few steps and then she looks around. She
Yep.
monitors everything 100%.
Yep.
And she might step one or two or three times and then take one last step. That cadence is broke up completely. And anything that's just sitting around listening to that while you're stalking in is immediately going to you know, throw a red flag whenever they hear you walking like a human.
Yep. Yep. For sure. 100%. That's a really good tip there. Um, you know, I think you said something to the effect of, right now in the off season is when is a good time to get out there and basically hunt without a weapon. That's when you do your scouting, and I think that's huge too. If you want to elaborate a
Man,
little bit on that.
yeah, because I think there's just so many guys, maybe a lot of people are rolling into fishing season right now.
Mhm.
And a lot of guys, we just got off a hunting season and they think that hunting season's over. And hunting season doesn't start back up until next fall, right? Well, those guys that are dedicated and really trying to make that public land thing work, um, I think you need to be hunting year round,
Yep.
whether that's with a tag in your pocket during the fall or during the off season. You're still hunting for those animals because now who cares if you spook them, right?
Right.
You're going in there to get information so that you can be lethal next year and go into that same area and know, oh, I've got this bed mark, or oh, I've got this scrape line mark. Let's go back and see if it's there. You know, always be hunting no matter what. The difference is once you bump deer out of their bed now, you're excited because you get to go get information. Whereas before, you were trying to harvest that animal and go collect the meat. Now you're trying to collect that data.
Yep. Yep. 100%. Yeah, that's good information. That kind of piggybacks on kind of what you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I 100% agree. Is if you live locally close to a piece of public land, like you should, most of those places, especially if it's a state park or
Yeah.
national wildlife refuge, something like that. Like most of those open to the public year round.
Yep.
Like it's not just your 1 week that you drew for your scouting period. Like get
That's
in
right.
there. Like I consider it like a home field advantage. Like
Absolutely.
why not? Like get out there. I know some of these places like the back of my hand because I
Yes,
get in there
sir.
and
When
I
I get
learn it.
drawn for some of my spots, I'm like, oh, we're going to kill a big buck this year.
Yes, sir.
I get excited about it because I know it. I know that area. Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Yep, for sure. So you're right in that. Like it should never stop paying attention to deer patterns or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably change a little bit, summer versus winter, but
Just a little bit, I think, when it, if there's cover there during wintertime and they're bedding in it, think about all the stuff that's going to grow up this spring and become 2 and 3, 4 foot
yep.
tall
Hmm.
in some of these areas that are surrounding these bedding areas those deer are going to feel even more comfortable once all that stuff grows in this spring and summer. So you might as well get there and learn that stuff now while you can see for as far as you can see, because nothing has a leaf on it. It's a huge advantage right now that people miss out on.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice for sure. And then of course the big one, dude, wind. Wind is your worst and sometimes your best. You know,
It's,
it can it
it's
can
my
it can,
favorite.
it can make you or break you.
Hey man,
If nothing else,
that's
people need to understand the wind. Like my buddy that I hunt, I'm lucky enough he lets me hunt on his ranch. He's always giving me a hard time. He's a rifle hunter. He's like, dude, you're always checking the wind. I was like, dude, you don't understand, man. You're not a bow hunter.
yeah. Yeah, because we got to get as close. We got to get so close. We're counting the whiskers on the deer. That so the wind is everything, 100%. And yeah, the wind could be a whole podcast by
Yep,
itself.
for sure.
Not only do I carry a snuffer bottle in my bino case, which I don't ever go anywhere without my binos or rangefinder and my wind checker.
Yep,
Like those, my bow and those three things are on me at all times.
yep,
Um, and not only, yeah, the wind checker and milkweed in my bino harness
yep.
at all times. Yeah, it, the wind decides on how I move in an area, how I move on a deer, the time of day it is. Because now I've been, learning from elk hunting,
Yep.
the thermals in the way thermals move. Now I think about thermals whenever I'm hunting whitetail, and I never thought about thermals before. It was always, oh, the wind forecast today is coming out of the south or whatever.
Right.
And then I get into my area, and it ain't nothing like coming out of the south until I get to another point of a draw or something like that.
Right.
And that's because of the thermals. So not only do I, checking thermals, but it's also a predominant wind. All that goes into how I work an area for sure.
Yep. No, for sure. And I know recently you shared about, how deer will bed with their backs to the wind, using their eyes, in front, and their nose is basically covering them, behind them,
Yeah,
and that's golden. I mean, that's 100%.
yeah.
That's everything right there. And I think sometimes wind, at least in a stalking situation, wind can help you. You,
Oh yeah.
you know.
So I mean, my favorite days are if I know a northern's blowing in, or if I know the south wind's coming back, and it's going to be pushing hard. And I'm talking, my favorite days to hunt are between 20 and 30-mile-an-hour winds. And people are like, "You are crazy. I'm staying home and watching football that day." Right? No, no, sir. Not going to happen. Because here's what's going to happen, okay? Is those deer rely on not only a slight breeze at their back, but they rely on being able to see movement coming from in front of them, right? Well, when everything is blowing 20 and 30 miles an hour, it's all doing this. It's just moving and moving and moving, and it freaks those deer out to
Hmm.
where they have to get up out of their bed. They just can't handle it. They have to stand up and be ready to go at all times. Well, guess what? And what's so crazy is I just filmed a little bit of footage of me doing this. Just was it yesterday or the day before? I stalked up in on a group of 6 or 8 does and got within 32 yards because the wind was just cranking right now, out of the south. And that wind helped me disguise my movement, my noise. Like the only thing they have working for them when the wind is blowing real high like that is their smell, and they're relying. So if you come in anywhere, I mean, basically 300 degrees, right?
Hmm.
They're relying on their nose to catch everything behind them.
Right.
And when it's super windy like that, you can get away with a ton of movement no matter which way you come in on them.
and noise for that matter, because
Oh yeah,
they just can't hear like they would. And that's what I was got on those, like a dead still. Oh man, you can't even in a tripod, like
no,
you can't even move like in a dead
yeah,
still with no wind at all.
yeah,
It's amazing how quiet the woods are. Like, damn it, I can't even just putting your release on, whatever,
yeah,
on
yeah,
your bow. It's like click. I'm like, oh man,
yeah.
it's
The knock makes a dong, all it
yeah,
echoes through the woods.
yeah. You're just like, dude, I didn't realize how quiet the woods could be. So
Yeah.
wind can definitely help. So that's 100% for anybody out there. Um, yeah, I guess that, I mean, it's probably so hard to just pick one, but if you had, maybe what would be one of your best advice to give to a new hunter to be successful on public land?
Um, so the number, I think I say it all the time. Whenever you see me harvest out there, y'all, it's because you're not seeing everything that went on that whole hunt. I'm condensing down hundreds of hours of hunting and hiking and doing all that stuff. And the one thing that I always tell myself and everybody else is never give up. Period. Never give up. Because at the last minute, when you're thinking I just don't think this is going to happen, it happens, and it's when you least expect it. And if you just go all the way until your very last day and don't give up, you already know you have to go back home at a certain time. That is not a failure to me because you didn't give up.
Right.
That's my best advice for anybody. If something's not happening, it's because you're missing something or you just need to push a little further.
Yep. Yep. 100%. And there's no substitute for on the ground learning, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like there's just, if,
It,
if you can't learn from your couch, like get out there and just
yeah.
do it.
Hard work, man. Nothing substitutes for hard work. If you put in the work, I firmly believe Mother Nature will give you that harvest. You just got to be dedicated and you've
Hmm.
got to want it because you will manifest it at some point in time.
Yep.
It will materialize for sure.
Yep. And to take a line from the Bro Crew, I mean, it only takes one. Like, and
Yeah,
it's just so true. Like it only takes one time.
yeah, man.
And whether
I
it's in the
wear,
whitetail woods or the elk woods, I got that shirt on right now. It only takes one.
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I support those guys 100%. I've got a Exo Mountain Gear Born and Raised Edition pack. Uh, just because I wanted, hopefully they got some benefit, some monetary, uh, benefit out of that.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, I love that. It only takes one.
It only takes one. And I wanted that pack. I was when I bought my EXO and they just didn't get it out in time. I was like, dude, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go. I gotta go, dude. This is my 2019 season. I was like, I just
So
bought the
that's a
EXO
funny
back.
story. I actually had those guys deliver that pack to Colorado, and it got there the day we were hiking in.
Oh
So
wow.
I never even packed my backpack. I didn't even know how it was going to fit or anything. I
Wow.
seriously got it in the mail the day I got to Colorado, and then we packed it full and went up on the mountain.
Oh
That was
wow.
2 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. That's when they came out, the 2019 season, but they were late putting it out. I was like, man, I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Let me go
yeah,
and. But I mean, EXO period is a hell of a pack,
yeah, for sure.
for sure. Uh, I'm sure you got 1,000 hunting stories. Share with listeners maybe one of your best hunting stories, whether it's your personal best or something that just stood out to you or anything. I think that'd be cool.
Um, man, really, man, that's hard. I'm trying to think, man. I've been on so many hunts. I've guided hunts. Um, dude, they're all super special to me. Um, man, yeah, that's hard, dude.
Yeah, it's all good, dude. Don't No worries, man. I mean, I
Yeah,
got a
I
ton
was
of them
really.
myself, and it's just hard to pick. I get it.
I mean, I'm trying to think, and I'm like, I've got my son.
Oh
That
yeah.
we were there for his first buck and my daughter's first buck. I rattled it in, and she shot him at 50 yards. Giant 6 point.
Yep.
Old deer. He had one tooth in the bottom of his jaw.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
every elk hunt I've ever been on, whether I harvested or not,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
just
Yep. For sure.
yeah, it doesn't matter. It
Yes.
doesn't matter to me. I
Yep.
I can be out in the woods and just carry my bow and be completely happy with that, man.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Sure.
I can completely relate. And I think any hunt where you got a kid hunting and harvesting, that's just an awesome hunt right there. Like that's just
Yes, sir.
gold. I was blessed enough to do a little bit of guiding this year with some kids and got their first bucks, and that dude is just such an amazing feeling
That's
for
sweet.
them to be so pumped and up, for their first buck, and it's nothing, they're cold bucks, but for them, dude, it's giant,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
for sure. So, well, cool, man. What's in store for Flatlander this coming year?
Oh,
What
dude.
any things you want to put out there or is it all going to be, on the low down, on the down
No,
low?
it's not really on the lowdown. I'm just such a fly by night. Like, you know, oh man, I would love to go do. Of course, I'm shooting for all 50 states. So, um, I think Colorado is out for me this year on elk hunting. I'm trying to branch out to either New Mexico or Oregon. I want to go hunt elk with Joel in Oregon and try for some Roosevelts.
Awesome.
Um, I want to get over to Nebraska, South Dakota, Pennsylvania, Louisiana. For sure, going to do Louisiana. The guy that filmed my hunt, um, Bear, he was cool enough to. I met him the night before and up on the mountain, and then he came into camp that next morning and asked if he could follow me along just to try to
Right.
learn, because we had just harvested Kyle's bull the day before, and so he was there and he got to film my hunt, and he was just blown away with that whole experience. So he's invited me to Louisiana. So for sure, Louisiana, dude, there's no telling. I'm tempted to, buy a plane ticket or something and go to South Carolina. My cousin lives there, so
There you go.
it, yeah, it's definitely. I would love to hit as many states as possible, but at the same time, I got to make sure that everything's good on the home front,
Of
and
course.
I really kind of play it by ear. But for sure, elk season, you're for sure going to see me hunt some elk and some
Awesome.
deer. I just don't know if it's going to be Texas or you know 5 or 6 or 10 other states. Depends on
Right.
if Flatlander can get some sponsors, man, then we'll be going.
That's
We'll be
cool.
going. As long as I can, for
Yeah,
sure.
that would be cool if you do that. Hope and good luck on that front for sure. I mean, with
Yeah,
that,
man.
you're extremely mobile with that rig. I know you got a video out there how you made that rig on your truck, dude. You can pull over and sleep anywhere. That's pretty
Yeah.
legit right there.
Well, dude, not just the rig. I've really set my life up to be a public land hunter.
Mm-hmm.
We had the big house payments and stuff. 1,400–1,500 a month payment. We ended up moving out onto a little piece of property here in the hill country that's paid off. We paid cash for a mobile home, and that's what I'm in right now, man. I redecorated. This thing's from 1986,
Nice.
and I got completely as far out of debt as I possibly could, and now I'm able to go do all these awesome hunts. So I'm not rich. I just don't have a house to pay for.
Right. Right.
And I do have a truck payment, but that thing gets me. It makes me money and
Right.
it gets me around. But yeah, dude, the my public land palace is without that thing in Arizona. We got 12 inches of snow for 4 days. Without that, dude, we would have been out of commission.
Oh, I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine. Nobody was expecting that.
Oh man, it was insane.
Yeah, for sure. It's just I'm probably not going to make it out this year to Colorado. The the wife let me go 3 years in a row. This year is going to be kind of tough to get the permission
Yeah.
slips in, but and I do like to go again. I'm kind of like you. I'm building points in Arizona, so for one
Nice.
day, maybe one day. hit up Arizona for elk, and yeah, New Mexico might be not this year, but maybe next. That'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool. So good. I got some points building in Wyoming. You building points in any states or
Dude, I've never built a point in my life, man. I've
really?
just pretty much only done OTC.
Oh, okay.
So I just now kind of started getting on that, which doesn't make me feel real good with point creep out there.
Yeah.
But I'm just shooting for the lowest grade units possible. I just want to harvest animal in every state. And whether that's a elk or mule deer
Yep.
or a speed goat, or
Right.
it doesn't matter to me what it is. Turkey, anything that I can buy a tag for and it's considered to be huntable with a bow,
Right.
that's what I'm going to go for sure.
Awesome. Awesome, dude. That's yeah, I'm late in the game in the point. Don't I mean I'm
Yeah,
2 and 3. That's
yeah.
like I got way late in the game. So
Oh,
that's why
dude,
I'm
yeah,
looking
I
look at
started this
stuff
year.
that yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just
I don't even
looking.
want to get into the point stuff. That it is what it is. I get it how it all started, but
Yeah,
eventually it needs to go away because, man, for brand new hunters, you don't have a chance.
I agree.
You guys are just going to have to figure out the OTC stuff and get hard.
Yep.
That's it.
I 100% agree. I wish some of these states that have, these units that no one will ever draw, you
Yeah,
know,
ever.
they need to just give everybody tags and let luck, fall where it may.
Yeah,
That's what I would do. I don't know, I
either
get that they're
that or we're
trying to
waiting for a
manage.
whole. Yeah, or we're waiting for a whole bunch of these guys to die off that have these huge point numbers that aren't cashing them in.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
it's just
crazy.
crazy. And hopefully,
When you come in the game with 1 point starting out as a young kid, and there's some 40-year-old guy that his parents have been putting him in for his whole life, and he's got 35 points, you can't compete with that.
right.
And there's a bunch of those people in line waiting for tags.
Yeah. No, I'm mostly looking, there's those units you can draw with 2 or 3 points, like those
That's what I'm all about.
short term
Yeah.
stuff. So for sure. Well, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And it's been an honor. Tell people how to find your content if they haven't heard of you already, and how to get in
Yeah, man.
contact with you or, yeah.
So you can, of course, you can find me on YouTube, Flatlander on YouTube. I have an email address if you want to email me any questions or anything like that. It's flatlanderhunt@yahoo.com right now. We're working on getting a website and all that stuff put up. I never expected to have to get to this point to where guys are wanting, merch and all that. So that's pretty cool, but it's pretty crazy at the same time having to start a company to sell hats and shirts and stuff. But it's awesome that I have that kind of support, man.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah,
sure. Like I said, a big fan. Keep doing what you're doing. You're definitely putting some really good content out there. I mean, it's tough being a content creator myself in the podcast world. It's one of those things. You do it because you love it. I mean,
yeah,
I got into because I can talk hunting all day long, or
yes,
fishing,
sir.
and it's just one of those things that. So, yeah, for sure. And good luck on your merchandise. I'll be hitting you up, looking for getting maybe a cap for one of those things
Right
here.
on, dude. Hey, let's get together next December and do a little hunt down there in our secret spot.
Yeah, yeah, we could do that for sure. And like
I'm
I,
thinking I'm thinking about putting on like a public land class down there. I don't know if tell me what you think about that. I'm thinking about having guys come down and building a basically um, like a like a school basically.
yep.
You come in, you get your public land permit, you get your Texas hunting license. We've got how much land is there?
Oh
Like
man,
30 or 40,000 acres to
yeah.
hunt. We'll have a classroom every day from 11 till 2, so you can go hunt in the morning. You come back, we can answer all your questions. What happened in the field that day? You go back out that evening, hunt, and then same thing. I'll probably feed lunch and dinner. I'm thinking about getting that in the works to try to help some of these guys really put that knowledge down and put it to use immediately in the field. I don't think there's anything like that.
No, there isn't, dude. It's so funny. I kind of had the same theory in mind of doing something like that down here in the valley because I think there's a lot of guys who want to go, whether it be local Texas public land or even out west,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you know everybody that puts on workshops, they're all from the West,
Yeah.
and there's not really
Those
a
guys live there where elk are.
yeah.
They've been there their whole life. Of course they know where they are, and of course they kill elk.
Yeah, but even putting on the camps, right? Putting on the elk training
Yeah.
camps,
Yes.
like we should do. I mean, that I'm 100% on board with your idea. That would
Sweet.
it's the perfect place. In fact, I know for a fact that one of my listeners reached out to me, uh, who listens to or subscribes to you. He's like, yeah, have you ever been to this place? Flatlander goes like, oh yeah, I've been there. So
That's cool.
he did it on his own. I mean, he didn't harvest, but hey, he got out there and got the knowledge. But I think that
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
that would be ideal to put together, and I'd be glad to be a part of that if
Heck yeah.
or whatever we can, or just brainstorm about it. That'd be cool,
Yeah.
because I think 100%, we need something like that.
Yeah, I thought about doing one down south and then one out in East Texas on some of the national forest land. Give people the opportunity to go get out in the woods with me myself and really break it down in person, and then they can go put that knowledge to work that day. And
Right.
then if they harvest, then awesome. Then that we have something to talk about during class. If not, then we can go over their whole day and what they did and maybe what they should do different or to keep doing what they're doing, whatever it is.
Right.
There's a lot of people. I've got a subscriber that just wrote me an email. He said, hey man, I'm 38 years old, I'm just now getting into hunting, and those are the people that I want to help out more than anything, because they're making a choice to provide this organic, delicious meat that's
Yep.
so healthy for you.
Yep.
It's never been touched by a scientist or anything like that. You
Organic.
know,
Yep.
you don't get this big by eating from the grocery store and the convenience store all the time. It's from wild meat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 100% grass fed by nature. Grass
That's it,
fed.
man. That's
Yes,
it.
sir.
Yeah,
100%. The
I want
best.
to teach everybody, all of my city friends out there that are listening to this. You guys are missing out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They don't know what they're missing. But thanks again, Cole, for coming on the podcast. We'll have to do it again sometime.
You bet, man.
Maybe as it gets closer to elk season, we can do an elk podcast.
Yeah,
I'd be honored to have you back on. Um, really appreciate it. And
you bet.
for all the listeners that are out there, thank you guys so much for listening. Check out Cole's channel on YouTube, Flatlander. I'll put a link to his channel in the show notes. And if you haven't subscribed to the SoTX Outdoors podcast, subscribe anywhere where you get your podcasts. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. And as always, let's take it outside.
See ya.
Yeah.